Welcome to the Universal Dancer podcast with your host Leslie Zare, author of The Alchemy of Dance and the Alchemia Remedies. Coming to you from Cairo, Egypt, the ancient land of Kem. Journey with us to explore sacred dance, the sacred arts, the mystical and the magical. Join a community of like-minded souls seeking to understand the cosmic dance of co-creation through the sacred arts. Come along and expand your mind, ignite your creativity, and explore something new and something old. Welcome to the Universal Dancer podcast. I'm Leslie Zare, your host, and I have another beautiful guest for you today, so let's just jump right in and let me introduce you to her. Angela Ambrosia is an energy and spiritual healer, movement meditation, and dance facilitator at Dance with Angela. She teaches on loving relationships, and she lives in Sydney, Australia. She offers online classes and private sessions to open you to your healing gifts and natural joy and how to live in alignment with your true self and not the expectations of others. Angela offers Dance for Joy workshops, which include Sufi movement and dance healing with World Dance, both online and in person in Sydney, Australia. Dance for Joy workshops celebrate the joy of all world dance and offer a fusion of meditative movement forms such as Sufi, Qigong, and body-mind centering that enable us to connect to ourselves and each other and the natural joy of being alive. In 2019, Angela experienced a near-death experience after going into a coma from an aggressive ovarian and uterine cancer. To the amazement of her medical team, friends, and family, Angela survived. In the years since her recovery, Angela realized how she denied her own knowing that she was not going to die because she believed what the hospital thought was true. She is aware of how much we allow the power of others' beliefs to overshadow our own knowing, even to the point of denying our own life. She encourages others to learn how to listen to their inner voice, while also inviting and creating spaces to share yourself with others and experience a true connection to all life and the gift of being connected to all that is. Let's welcome Angela to the show. Hi, Angela. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Leslie. Great to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. And let's just jump right in. I usually begin by asking how you started dancing. Were you a child or something later in life? Where did this dance journey begin for you?
So, as a child, I was always dancing around the house. I used to dance to all of the music in the radio. So I grew up in the 70s, and there was such incredible music in those times. And I never did classes or anything like that until I was 21. So I started from when I was a teenager dancing every day. And that's when I started to do movements that I didn't know where they came from. So belly dance movements and hip movements were something they used to do with some of the pop music that was at the time. But I used to do a lot of improv at home. And when I was 21, then I started to do theatre and movement theatre in Australia and community theatre. And the gift of that time, from like 21 to 29 in Australia, I had all these different groups from all countries all over the world. We had a theatre alliance and a music alliance, a multicultural theatre alliance. And through that community, I was able to work with people who didn't speak English as their first language and had a variety of dance forms from Asia, Philippines, Indonesia, South America, Greek, Middle Eastern, South American and Central American. So we had a lot of different cultures. And that started, Leslie, my obsession with what is this movement form that might be flavored by one particular culture, and what's the communication from one folkloric movement form and another movement form or from one culture to another culture.
So is that what you call universal dance? Is that we have this common concept of universal dance? So let's dive into that. Is that where it came from for you? Was from these different cultures?
That was the beginning from like 21 to 29. I also then went to USA, New Mexico, and studied Sufi dance with Adnan Sarhan. And in the Sufi camp, there was lots of belly dance. So not all Sufi movement uses belly dance, but Adnan back then and used a lot of belly dances. And the obsession with the universal dance came when I was working with the multicultural theatre groups, and I saw that we all had a different feel, but we had this desire to connect. And the universal dance obsession just kept me looking more for what is the rhythm of a culture, what's it doing to the body, and what's it asking the body to do. And then when you bring two different cultural forms together, what is the ultimate desire? So I used to write about desire when I was young as well. And I think that's, I want to ask you today what the universal dance is, because certainly for me, belly dance connected me to the cosmos and the universe itself. So one part of the universal dance is that dance that you feel from the crown through to the heart, down to the earth. That's the basis of most of how I educate people about their own energy form. However, each cultural dance gives so much to the dance itself. So my fascination with the universal dance is, are we trying to, teleport to, say, some other parts of the earth itself? Are we asking from that land to connect us to the universe in a different flavor or in a different rhythm or with different symbols? And certainly I know in Egypt, that's a land full of extraordinary symbols. Also, I work with India through spiritual work, and the symbols there, the gods there, the deities there, use a lot of hand symbols, which for me, when I worked in belly dance, I started to connect to energy outside of Earth, energy from the universe. So I think my obsession was really more like a discovery of what could be a universal dance that each cultural dance was trying to connect to, and we all spoke from each landmass on Earth, maybe a different voice that resonated out to the cosmos, to the galaxy, and then to other galaxies or to other star systems. Now there's a lot of people that are acknowledging that there are beings from other star systems that are trying to connect to us, and that's also been a big part of my journey from early childhood, about talking to other beings and not knowing what they were. And for me, in the universal dance, or when I danced, I didn't need to use language. And I think that's another element, Leslie, like I'm not needing language in the universal dance. It's this universal language that is experienced through dance. It cannot be communicated through language. It could be shared through maybe telepathy, but for me, when I dance, it's an experience that can only be expressed in dance. And that's for me the universal dance. It could be sometimes the movement of the planets in relationship to other orbs, and that's mirrored in our cells of the body. So what about you? Please enlighten me on the universal dance or universal dancer as well.
Well, I think for me, obviously the universal dancer is someone who does the universal dance, but the way it came from me, or my understanding of it, is very much wave patterns. So ultimately, what we're connecting to are these wave patterns. So for me, the alchemy of dance, the dance form that I downloaded, are all wave movements. So I've been accused of teaching belly dance, which I don't. I think this is beyond that, and I think that's sort of what you're saying as well. But these serpentine movements to me are related to the serpent goddess, which is actually the Kundalini. But all these waveforms, if we think about it, music are waves. So when we dance to music, we can connect directly into those waveforms. And the body itself is just a receiver, really. So light is coming to us in waves. It's our eyes that translate it into something or that give it a name. But I think that we could feel those things. I bet that we could feel color, for
Yes.
example, if we could attune our bodies to what does that wavelength feel like. Right now, it's our eyes are receiving information, are receiving wave patterns, translating to the brain, this is red or this is yellow. Um, the same thing with music. These particular wave patterns are being translated through this receptor that is our ears and then feeds to the brain. So I think when we do these wave like patterns, these serpentine movements, we are connecting into greater wave patterns, which ultimately are our DNA, which is also a wave pattern. So yes, you could be communicating with other galaxies or whatever through these wave patterns. And what you mentioned about different cultures, different folkloric dances, I think that has a lot to do with the energy that's emanating from those actual places. So the wave patterns that you might be picking up in Egypt or the Middle East might be slightly different than the wave patterns that you're picking up if you were in Latin America, because the energies, they could be similar, but they're not exactly the same. So I think they're translating those wave patterns into a slightly different movement. But if you really look at movement, a lot of it is wave patterns, and a lot of it, Latin American dance could be very similar to belly dance on some level, again, with slight variations. So to me, that universal dance is really that point where you are integrating the wave patterns, I guess, when you're actually dancing with those or with those wave patterns or becoming those wave patterns. So it is transcendent in that way. You could be connecting with something much greater than yourself.
And when you were saying you downloaded the dance, that form of communication, to me, my experience when you shared it, it's almost like that's what I mean about beyond words. So for
Yes.
me, it's not a language that's studied enough because dance is an ancient, ancient human expression. And you can see cave paintings and they're sort of somewhat examined a little bit, but we don't have any chronicles of the ancient dances and this wave, this sense of feeling, of sensing with the body and with the consciousness. And so much of our world right now is hungry for awakening or consciousness, but it's actually been going on for eternity. Well, when we're just the outgrowth of bacteria and we've been vibrating from that period, even before the bacteria, there was the vibration. So I love how you said about the DNA as well, because that's that continuity of life that's vibrating through the universe. And that's the other aspect I find when you're in the dance, you're always connected. That's what I discovered for the first time in a really shocking way for me personally, was in the Sufi dance, because it is Middle Eastern and the teacher was from Baghdad. So he's very Middle Eastern, even though Sufis are very Far Eastern to Middle East. The music and the dance forms are different. And so in the Sufi work, I discovered my divine. There's no other word for it. It was like a sense of myself that was so loving and loved me and was connected to love. And that was quite shocking because I'd done a lot of modern dance and I'd clubbed and I'd done shamanism and all this stuff. But to have that sense of the divine, which was beyond anything I could put into language, that's the feeling I feel people now on earth are hungry for. They don't want the spiritual traditions that are maybe more through the religious institutions or through what we know through the last 5,000 years. They're looking for something much more universal. That's like you're sharing, the waveform that moves through us, that's beyond language, that's kind of even before we incarnated. It's from that soul, the spirit level, or the divine part of ourselves. So for me, dance has always been that. It's always been a meeting of the divine. And I first experienced it very physically when I felt my heart awaken to it in the Sufi dance, and that made me realize that some of this belly dance or folkloric dance, it's actually much more ancient. It's more connected to these things that come before even humanity, perhaps, and connected to, you're saying, like these waveforms or these impulses from the galaxy or from other life forms that came to bring us and seed us and help us evolve to a higher consciousness species. So yeah, that's beautiful, the waveform. Thank you. That's
well, and I call them primordial waves because I do think that just it came from the primordial soup, and even in Christianity, I believe, I don't know the text very well, but in the beginning there was the word, and I think the word is a wave. It's a sound that create the Big Bang, even, we call it. So I think that's where these waveforms came from. And they say that there are transmissions from the center of the galaxy, that these waveforms are being, and that possibly even the sun, perhaps our sun is a huge transmitter and transmits these waves of knowledge or whatever. But I think that when you get into a state, and to me that's why dance is such a gift, and I suppose this happens for different people in different ways. For me, it's through dance that I can connect with those waves. So for someone else, it might be through singing or through playing music or through art, even working with color. Maybe there's some kind of transmission or whatever that happens just in how those colors are impacting you. But I think it is ultimately about aligning with those primordial waves. And through eons, we've been trying to do that. We know that our body is a receptor, but how do we use that? How do we receive? And for a long period of time, I think as humans, we forgot that. And now we're reawakening those parts of ourselves. But I do think that that sleeping DNA inside of us is our history, and that one way to activate that is through movement, through connecting with waves, through connecting with those wave patterns. Perhaps we have all of history within us. So if we could do that, and as I said, for me, dance, and that goes back to what you were saying about the Sufi dance, because ultimately that's what the divine, I think, is the totality, the 0-point field, or the totality of all of these waves. So if we within ourselves can find a way to connect to that oneness, then we've got it. Then we've tapped into all of, that's the cosmic dance, where we can tap into everything if we can tap into the divine. Which is a huge undertaking, but but we glimpse it, like in moments of your Sufi dance. We glimpse those those things, and we know it's there. So it encourages us, I think, to keep moving forward, or to keep trying, or to keep doing it.
Yeah, I always used to research Greek, the Delphic Oracle and the Lusitanian mysteries. I'd fantasize about them, and I'd fantasize about these goddess priestess type rituals that people would do on a monthly basis or on a equinox or on a solstice. I'd always wonder, what were those dances, and if I could do something like that now. Now my work's more in the moment, and just because of my illness, actually, I wasn't able to move. And so it's always, I think a lot of dancers have this experience, an injury or something, and you're just, I can't dance. Oh my God, is my life over? And I had that a few times. I got sicknesses where I couldn't dance, and I had to discover what is there when you're still. And that's a really good place to discover the movement that happens in your consciousness. So that's the other part of where I go in my exploration of oneness. Or so I think in the ancient cultures they had rituals that were developed through the culture, through the earth, through the land mass that they were connected to, through the seasons, through the nature. Especially in Australia here, they're masters of this. They downloaded ancient rites around looking after the land and using dance to make worship and love to that land and to honor that and to sing to the land. So there's a sacredness here that's it's in the land, and when you live here, we sit on top of it. We can't quite touch it because it's so potent. It's scary. And what I found, even being in Australia and being born here, it's an unspoken thing, the dance. It's just, that's how they related to the land. And what I found also with that journey of when you're still and you can't move is that there is something now that's happening. I might not have the Indigenous culture dancing like we did here for thousands and thousands of years and singing the songs here. But in the moment, there is a new dance. And that's what I had some hallucinations when I was in hospital as well. I remember later going, oh, that was pretty interesting. What was that about? But it was kind of like I was stuck on drugs and in pain, but I couldn't feel a lot of it sometimes because of the drugs, thank God. And I had these journeys, and I thought, okay, so we don't have rituals, we don't have sacredness, we don't have folkloric respect for these sacred ways of expressing the dance. But in this moment, there is something else going on in the body. And that's where I fell in love with body-mind centering. We were blessed in Australia from, I think, the mid-90s to 2000s. We had a teacher, Annetta Luce, in Sydney, who brought body-mind centering here, where we would go deep within our body and into the cells and into the organs. And that's been the next layer of, for me, the universal dance. It's going deep into the internal body systems, and then even exploring what that looks like. It reminds me of that, what was the TV show, Journey to the Center of the Earth? And you went inside the body, and to do it from you're feeling your own body. That's what I discovered was the next step from these ancient cultures, which I was fascinated by them, but I was doing it like a tourist. And I trained in belly dance, and I've trained in samba and Afro-Brazilian dance, but I haven't really, dedicated my life to any one dance beyond those. So to go into the body, that was where I thought maybe our civilization in this time has to go into another universal dance that every human on the planet has. We all have a body. We all have different relationships to our body. And how do we begin that dance and take it to the universal level? And that's why maybe there's more of the people doing meditation and yoga, and that some of those things took off in the last 20 years in a way that it wasn't like that in the 90s, but they've just exploded because I think people are needing to go and feel their internal body, because we haven't got these sacred dances that we've done for thousands of years holding the vibration. So the waveform, that's really making my body go, wow, yeah, where's this wave going? Coming from the sun down into
Yes.
our very being and into different layers of the being.
And I think that that's what you're talking about. Like when you talk about the indigenous cultures and they have their dances and they have their songs, all of that is a way in. I don't think it changes anything. I think that's the access point, and they have their access point that they've used for thousands of years. I think it's accessible to anybody. The problem is we don't know how to do that. They know how to do that because someone has taught them and they've done it for thousands of years. But theoretically, all you need is a way in. And I think that's what you're talking about. And for example, in an ayahuasca ceremony, very often people meet the serpent goddess. I think I call the serpent goddess those primordial waves. And because I feel she is like an entity. She has an intelligence. Waves hold information. They have an intelligence. So I think it's about, how do I meet the serpent goddess? How do I get to her? How do I get to that point? Maybe you do it through dance, through singing, through ayahuasca. Maybe you do it through illness. I think that's another way to and possibly those drugs that they gave you in the hospital. Again, they remove barriers. I think
Yeah.
that's what our brain is doing, is blocking things out. And this shift, as you're saying about yoga and meditation, is people suddenly realizing that they need to find ways to remove the filters that have kept them kind of in this very masculine, physical brain, thinking way of living, and to remove some of that and realize that you can experience life, first of all, through your body. That's our vehicle, that's our receptor, and that it's not just through the brain that we have experiences. We don't just process everything through the brain. And we know that now too, that a lot of sensation is not just processed through the brain as once thought. So I think it really is about what is the way in, and that's going to be different. That portal, that access point. I think it's the waves that are the divinity or the oneness, but how do we get to that? And that is what I hope people like yourself and myself, if we can find the way in, then we can show other people how to get in. And again, it isn't the only way, but it is a way. And once you had that experience in that Sufi dance class, then you knew that you could get in. And it's
Yeah.
just about, how do I do this again?
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing I learned, well, the Sufi experience was, I was 27 or something, and I'm 52 now, so it hasn't stopped. I had this funny thing, like I moved a lot over the 20 years I was living in America and Australia, and I'd kind of move. So to do regular classes is not easy when you're moving a lot, but I'd always end up teaching dance. And it kept on growing, and then I'd do more dance classes, and I'd learn more dances, or I'd do a dance show. I'd find other dancers and we'd do a performance. So the thing of like I'm interested in the serpent goddess as a energy as well, because it doesn't stop. It needs to. I think the other thing with dance is it needs to be cultivated, and it needs to like the snake shedding its skin, it needs to experience itself in new locations or new situations or new moments. When I was younger, we used to go out dancing a lot, and we'd always have this feeling before you went out at night. It would be like you don't know what it was going to entail. That was the ritual. That was what I was tapping into, was these sacred dance rituals that were in cultures. You would be capturing the energy of that time of the year and the people. And that's what the clubbing scene was like, or the party scene. And it's still like that, but now there's a lot of other influences in the scene. We were at the beginning of it. And it was that feeling like we have to do this because we have to experience this new energy and this new moment. We don't know what it entails. And so through my aging, I'm seeing that the dance itself always sort of asks you to keep growing. It's that DNA thing. It's like I need to either heal some other part of the DNA that needs healing, activate something, call something in. My most recent thing is that moment I had in the Sufi camp with Adnan, creating the space for us, because that's what Adnan's gift was as well. He created sacred spaces for people to pull the divine in, is how we can do it in any moment. That's my fascination. I know Google and other people have been speeding up with AI, other certain factors of our technology consciousness. But for dance consciousness, when I discovered that you could find the way in the Sufi, you're exactly right. Like I knew I had something there. And I was like, what's that? I'm going to follow that. I don't know what it is. Now I have more awareness of what it is. It's my spirit. That's it. And it's eternally connected to the universe. So now I'm like, well, how can I do that in a second, at any time, in a bus or on the road or in a crisis, or when I'm heartbroken, or where I'm facing a crisis that I need help? And that's been my sort of longer goal of how to bring spirit in anywhere. I do it in the dance workshops, and now I'm looking at how to do it anywhere, because I noticed in the hospital actually it helped me survive, and a lot of people witnessed that. And I was quite dramatic in my sickness. There was lots of disasters every couple of hours, and people were able to see that I was able to get through that and keep going. So it was basically accessing the divine all the time, even if I'm having a meltdown. That's my latest obsession. But I feel like that might be where I was going. At the moment, from that Sufi heart connection, and I saw the divine, I was like, who is that? Can you become me? I want to be you. And there was
But I think we were. I mean, I think that's the wisdom of ancient cultures. Like you think about ancient Egypt, and their spirituality, their magic was not separate from their lives. It wasn't a religion that you went to the church or the temple. It was your life. You lived in oneness within that cosmic web. You lived in that and you knew answers. And I think that this is something that's interesting. You mentioned Google and AI, and I think it's interesting because to me, technology is showing us what we can do as human beings. Because for some reason, we seem to need for it to be outside of us for us to look at it and say, oh, okay, like email, how can you believe in email and not believe in telepathy? It's the same thing. A message is being sent from one device to another device. It goes through the air, through Wi-Fi, and it's received on the other device. So what's the difference? Our brain is a device, or even our bodies. So why would we not be able to send a message as if we're sending it through Wi-Fi directly from our brain? We don't need a chip implanted. We can already do that, but we don't realize we can do that. And it's the same thing with AI. When you got to that place, that moment of connection, It's the same thing. You could have gotten an answer to anything. You could have written a book at that place. You know, you could have answered any question that you would ask Google in that place. But we don't know that we as individuals have the ability to do that. So we're asking our computers, we're asking our phones, we're asking AI, but artificial intelligence, we already have intelligence. We don't
Yeah,
need it outside of ourselves. But I do think that technology is showing us what we have the ability to do. So if you could stay connected, if you could
yeah,
stay online, you know, in the cosmic online, not in this one that we've created here, you would have the answer to everything at every moment. And you've glimpsed that. You've had
yeah,
those experiences. And it sounds like in the hospital, you were knowing which way to go and what to do because you were tapped into that, whatever, you know, that is the great cosmic web rather than the world wide web. So, yeah, I think that that's what we're finding. That's what we're discovering for those who want to actually discover that within ourselves.
yeah. And I guess the artificial intelligence is a parallel reflection of those
Yes.
of us who are doing the physical, spiritual, mind body, spirit connection, or the dance. And for me, what you're sharing about the waves is significant because it goes beyond language. That was my obsession when I
Yes.
worked with the multicultural theatre and dance and music groups. We couldn't all speak English. It was great. I was in my heaven. I was like, yeah, English, who cares? And that's then we improved and we created these weird dance shows, and they were kind of didn't quite fit, and that was okay. That's Australia. It's a bit quirky, Australia. You do shows here and you go, "Oh, it kind of works." But they are good at, I must say that it's wonderful here, the cross-cultural tolerance. It's a very refreshing country for that. We don't quite understand each other, but that's okay.
Agree to disagree
Yeah,
or embrace diversity, however you
yeah,
want to look at
yeah.
that. Yes. So tell us a little bit about your Dance for Joy workshops. What are you doing? How are you doing that, or what is the experience, and how did
Yeah.
that come about?
Yes, so when I was, I think, 29 or so, I was studying with my spiritual teacher, and and they channel a divine being called John the Beloved, and I got told pretty much that I was here to live in joy, and at 30 years later, I decided to call the workshops that. I've been doing that. I've been dancing and living and traveling to different states in the US and countries in the world, bit of Europe, bit of Asia, Australia, of course, and dancing in joy. And I kind of am an improv dancer as well. So I would have quite a few experiences of just going to a nightclub or a festival and improv and having the best time. So Dance for Joy is bringing that spontaneous, kooky, weird part of my nature to others to allow them to really just experience their body at whatever level they're ready to experience it, whether it's more that spiritual side through the Sufi class. So I have two classes, which sometimes I fuse into one. I do the Sufi classes taught to me by Adnan Sarhan from the Sufi Foundation in New Mexico. Adnan's no longer with us. And I share some of his work with some Middle Eastern and Far Eastern music and help people really experience the heart. What is that? Because I had a pretty epic life-changing event. So that's my work is all about the heart chakra, and everything that I've learned through all of the dances is how that supports you in each dance form. So in the Sufi class, I help people experience that. And so it depends on who shows up. So we have men and women. So I will change some of the movements to fit where they're ready to explore as well. And we might end up doing improv as well. And the second class in Dance for Joy is World Dance Healing, which integrates more the internal body when we go into the organs. What revolutionized my life after the Sufi was working with Annetta Luce, and she used body-mind centering principles to help us connect to the organs and to the heart and to the kidneys and to different parts of the body. For me, the organs were my favorite because they're kind of like the inner planets. The outer planets are reflected in our body, but when you go to your inner planets, your organs are like that. There's so much stored there. And a couple of my students, when we're doing that work, will heal with ancestors. They can touch on a deep wound. We don't necessarily, trigger the trauma, but we allow it. Because what happens in Dance for Joy is that they actually just develop natural acceptance of whatever's there. And then after class, we've had some people maybe processing a little bit. I do encourage them to speak about it with me as well later, but it's very non-verbal what goes on in the World Dance Healing. And all of the dance healing work that I do is also supported with energy body work. So I'm a trained energy healer. So I look at what is your feeling of your aura? I tried to learn concepts of the aura and I couldn't, which was really strange for me because I have to experience things kinesthetically. So what happened was, as I was dancing, I started to experience other people's auras. And in World Dance Healing, we play with that as well. How do you know your field? What are you pulling in and downloading? And sometimes we just do a lot of improv for people to, I guide them as I talk to them about their field, and we let them experience it, and basically things get downloaded, sort of like you were talking about your dance was downloaded, because basically that's what was happening to me all my life. I'd dance with people and they downloaded stuff, and then I'd go, that was weird, what happened? And we sometimes didn't know what was going on as well. So there's 2 classes that I teach, and then every now and then I fuse the Sufi dance, the Sufi movements from Adnan, and we integrate that with the World Dance Healing, and we come together and create a group dance. So it's trying, Leslie, to bring back my obsession with the ancient cultures, that we did these ritualistic dances around the world. So in Australia, it's quite fascinating. Also in the States where I worked, there's so many cultures now, people with different ethnic backgrounds. So in their DNA is like every culture in the world, and it's like world party. And so that's what I try to have people experience. I use Afro Samba movements and some of the collective movement dances, and we just get people to start creating their own dance, and we share that together. So we do partner work, we do group work. So World Dance Healing is very spontaneous and just allowing people to experience what might be, say, for example, if we were all interbred and there weren't any difference between us, you were all born in one country from all different backgrounds, what would be that new dance that we would create? What would be the dance that our cells would be creating if we didn't have all these concepts of what this world is? And that's extremely important. Dance for Joy is about bringing in, for me, that universal joy, that part of the universe that isn't limited by what's on planet Earth. Because if you look at younger people, they're very fluid with a lot of things right now. They're trying to bring in a new consciousness where we're not looking at ourselves necessarily by our external appearance or by our ancestors' definition of ourselves. So that's what's trying to come into the planet right now. So Dance for Joy is a space to bring in what's that next expression of our species. What could be your personal dance and in the collective group dance? And I use a lot of Afro Samba, other modern world dance music to really get back into the organs and the juiciness of the bodies as well, to just allow improv and allow creativity to come out in the dance.
And what kind of impact does that have on the students? Like what are they moving through?
They just get this energy that they go, yeah, I feel alive. And 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 some of them, it's quite touching, a little bit like that impact I had with the Sufi class where I felt my divine and a deep connection to their heart. And I've had some students that are coming from a breakup or a heartbreak, and they're really just finding themselves. They're just coming back to find themselves, and the dance is that path for them. And it helps them see that there's that deep part of them it's not restricted by the breakup or the heart trauma or whatever they've gone through. There's something really deep there. And others have had dreams afterwards as well, like messages and downloads. Some people get activated through their points in the hands and the feet. So often I use the aura and I just do it very simply, they get a feeling that comes through those chakra points, and that might be something that they need to process as well. We have some students that are really just learning about feeling into their bodies. So I have people with some different levels of ability as well in dance, like beginners. And so they're just learning how to feel their body in a different way, where it's not, I have to learn to move. And one thing that happens, and this is because of Annetta as well, she was so great at it, and it's just something I love from her lineage, from her teachings carrying forward, is getting complete people who think they can't dance, creating awesome dancing, and they really get funky and deep in their body when they think they're not able to. So it's giving people really simple ways of learning world dance as well. So belly dance can be challenging, but I give them a very fast way to access the core of the dance, which is the heart, and how it was actually a spiritual dance, and it's really fun. It's a fun dance when you know what it's trying to access. If you're trying to do the moves,
Yes.
it becomes a bit mental. So I help some of the students that want to learn some of those dances get the essence of the dance, so that then they can go to other classes, and if they want to go deeper, they can have a really simple foundation that's embodied. It's like it's in their organs, it's in their core, it's in their belly. I love the belly. That's one of my favorite. I don't move it like belly dance all the time, but I just adore the connection to the belly organs. They just have this profound simplicity. So that's where I help people, say, for example, if they have trouble with oversensitivity. So some of my people are highly sensitive, like me. So we help just ground them and stabilize and connect to their body with fun and funny ways, because I'm not very serious as well when I teach. I'm not very I mean, what I'm doing is connecting to spirit, but I'm not very serious about it.
Well, I think people are too serious, so if you can lighten things up a bit, it's a better way to soften and to connect. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I think that's true. You made a good point. If you could connect with that deeper, authentic part of yourself, that eternal piece of yourself, we would be more resilient. We would see how, as you said, the breakup or whatever, the details of whatever's going on around us are just details, and it will pass, and we can connect to that deeper place. I think that would make us more resilient and allow us to move through things more easily.
Yeah. Yeah, we need it at this stage. We need that deeper connection. That's my obsession. I've had that for a long time, but I feel people looking for it. There's a lot of external stimulation pulling us away, but I think people really want that deeper embodiment to feel safe in their bodies. I mean, that's one benefit I saw about all the conversation about trauma the last 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Somatic therapy was awesome in the 90s to bring somatic work to the forefront, like Annie Brooke and Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen from Body Mind Centering did awesome work to really show how just allowing people to be supported in their bodies would enable trauma to be felt. And people now, that they did foundational work, but now we're looking at how do we allow people to there is a lot of hurt in the world. So my goal is to help people feel safe in just being with the hurt. You don't need to go so deep, and there can be ways to just allow the hurt, and it starts to move. And from our Indigenous and our folkloric and tribal dancers, they were using dance to just release a lot. That was the practices. That's one reason they danced, was to release hurts and to have fun, so you wouldn't take the hurt so seriously. So I think people are really looking for that deeper embodiment of that eternal self, and that's the sacred dance for me. It's the dance allows you to just know that you are divine, and that's what the Sufis always knew, and that's what all of us who are doing this sacred dance work, that's what we're creating the spaces for people to experience that eternal self.
And I think through dance, through these practices where you are releasing, and when you do them regularly, then you can heal constantly, or you can release constantly. And I think that, again, is something the ancients used to do as a part of their lives. So
Yeah.
you didn't have this buildup maybe of trauma or negative emotions or whatever, because you were constantly releasing whatever was coming up along the way.
And you did it with the seasons. So there was always this thing that's I was obsessed as a teenager with the Greek religions, ancient Greek, and they did everything with seasons. And Bacchanalia was a seasonal thing, because you grew the grapes and you did things at that time, and then the women went out to release things for the community. If you in Morocco, they have dances where you release for the community. They do things for the community as well, not just for the self. And I mean, there's so much we owe to those cultures who came before us. They've got the gifts of the dance forms that show us how to do it.
Yes.
So Dance for Joy is about bringing it in a more kind of erratic way, because I just channel things in the moment sometimes, but I do use a lot of the Afro-Brazilian format to kind of give us a structure on how to, because in Afro-Brazilian dance, they had a lot of different religious forms that came from Africa to Brazil, and they brought their own flavor to the dance. They brought their own flavor to the gods. And even some of the dance forms, they take on modern music and they keep on evolving. That's the thing I was saying before, like that serpent type energy. It's never finished growing. It's just constantly growing.
Cycles. Yes.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you for speaking with me and sharing your wisdom. You've given me a lot to think about, which I like, and I'm sure the audience as well. So if people want to get in touch with you, you have a website, Dance with Angela, and you're on Facebook, Angela Ambrosia 31, Instagram, Angela Ambrosia, and YouTube, Dance with Angela. So There are many ways to get in touch with Angela. I hope you will connect with her and explore her work more deeply. So thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Leslie. It was so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to the audience. I hope you enjoyed that, and you can get in touch with Angela, visit her website, see what else she's doing, and hopefully get involved in some of the practices that she's teaching. So thank you for being here. And if you're interested in watching other episodes of the podcast, there is a playlist that you can watch. And I hope you'll be with me again next month when I interview another guest. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.